Alright, let's try not to waste time here. You know what you came for. Today we're going over all the legendary pistols found in the base vanilla game of Borderlands 2. Maybe containing some interesting trivia you didn't previously know? This isn't really my usual kind of thing. This is mainly just a personal itch of mine I really want to scratch. Alright dude, let's do this. If you played this game, you know exactly what's first. It's the legendary Hornet, manufactured by the Daw Corporation. It can be found immediately during the first mission in Windshear Waste, aka Claptrap's place. And it's specifically dropped by the first boss, Knuckledragger, having a 10% chance to drop for each time you kill him. Alternatively, you can head to the Captain Scarlet DLC and fight the raid boss Hyperius, located in the Washburn Refinery, for another chance at getting the Hornet. However, this isn't nearly as efficient as it only has a 1.95% drop rate from Hyperius. The Hornet can only ever drop with the corrosive element, making it highly reliable against armored and fleshy enemies. It's immediately useful against the following two bosses in the storyline, Boom Boom and Captain Flint, as Boom Boom are armored enemies and Captain Flint is a fleshy enemy that also heals himself from fire damage, and its usefulness remains apparent for many levels later. Being a dull pistol, aiming down your sights and firing causes the pistol to burst fire in 6 rounds, with a faster firing and recovery speed than normal dull bursts. The special gimmick of the Hornet, however, is that its projectiles explode on impact and deal splash damage, which deal an additional 80% of the bullet damage, which can then be boosted even further with skills or class mods that increase grenade damage. Combine that with increased corrosive damage and the burst fire, and you have yourself what is essentially a shotgun pistol that can one-tap standard enemies and melt them. As a whole, I would rate the Hornet a 4 out of 5. I can give it endless praise, but the one thing that holds it back is its scaling. It just doesn't hold up as well in the late game or end game as some other competing legendary pistols, but in the early game I would consider it almost a must-have, especially for how easily you can obtain it. Next up we have the Thunderball Fists, manufactured by the beautiful Malawan Corporation. It can be found in the second map of the game, Southern Shelf, dropped by the aforementioned Captain Flint with a 5% drop rate. Those who have tried farming for this thing without any quality of life mods know just how tiring this is, having to spend ungodly minutes just running to his arena. You can also head to Wham Bam Island in the Hammerlock Headhunter DLC for an easier shot at the Thunderball Fists, killing Sparky Flint, Captain Flint's son, for the same drop chance, though he still has you running across the level just to get to him too. The Thunderball Fists are a shock element exclusive pistol, which is most effective against enemies with shields. While I do like the shock element, and it serves its purpose well, I still feel like it's probably the second weakest element in the game behind slag, as shields are never very dense in this game, and it's not as effective against flesh or armor, so having that restriction to shock I think definitely holds back this pistol. Its special gimmick is that when its bullets land, it creates a secondary Nova Ball that explodes in an AoE effect. The initial bullet deals additional splash damage, which again can be amplified, and then the secondary Nova deals another 150% splash damage. On paper that sounds amazing, it's like a direct upgrade to the Hornet with all that splash damage, except Malawan weapons don't burst fire like Daw weapons can. So instead of 6 of these shots being fired at one time, you're only firing the 1, which is a big and noticeable difference. That, and coupled with the fact that it chews through ammo and you're reloading every 4 or 5 shots, makes the DPS of the Thunderball Fists almost laughable in comparison to some other weapons. Its downtime is very overwhelming in high-intensity situations. Probably the biggest downfall of the weapon, however, is the fact that the secondary Nova doesn't gain increased damage from any skills, class mods, relics, anything. In the low levels of this game, that's negligible for some time, even with this weapon's immediately present low damage output. However, as you creep towards the endgame, the fall off in damage for this thing becomes exponential from that splash damage loss. By the very end, at level 80 OP10, you might as well be tickling the most common enemies when you shoot them with this thing, and that's even with the most elementally optimized build you can imagine. All in all, I think I have to give the Thunderball Fists a 1 or even a 0 out of 5. I wanted to give it a 2, at least, since it had a spot in my heart as a kid, but I just don't know what they were thinking when designing this gun. You're encouraged from even farming for it, as it's so far out of the way, and even when you finally get it, it's already been totally shadowed by the Hornet's sheer power, and gets immediately power crept even harder by the following legendaries you can find. It doesn't reliably fill any niches in any builds. The Thunderball Fist is just a total meme weapon. I dare say it's garbage. Yeah, so quite the drop in power from the first pistol to the next. However, the Unkempt Harold more than makes up for that. Manufactured by Torg and the most badassest pistol in the whole game. Located in Three Horns Divide, upon completing the Road to Sanctuary mission, you are able to find and farm the named enemy Savage Lee within the Marrow Fields for its solid 10% drop rate. The run of Savage Lee is a very quick one, so you're usually over with this farm in about 20 minutes if you aren't picky about the parts you get for your gun. You can also head to any one of the Torg vending machines within the Torg DLC for arguably just as good of a shot at the gun, having a 16.7% chance of being rolled as the legendary item of the day. This can be very quickly farmed by just saving and quitting in a number of maps. However, the caveat is that you need at least 500 to 600 Torgue tokens to purchase it, which take a long time themselves to farm. Like all other Torgue weapons, the Unkempt Harold can only ever drop with the explosive element. I'd say explosive is a strange element, as it doesn't deal any damage over time, just having splash damage and giving bullets a higher base damage. It also isn't specifically effective or ineffective against any enemy type, but all these traits make it consistently usable in all areas of the game, so it's hard to complain. The special gimmick of the Unkempt Harold, which completely separates it from all other pistols in the game and elevates it to its own status, is that for every bullet fired, they immediately split into 6 bullets in a horizontal line, with each impact of each bullet dealing 100% explosive damage, which then set off a secondary set of explosives that then deal another 70% explosive grenade damage. All of this bonus damage can be buffed through comms and relics alike, and these buff bonuses apply to every bullet. Grabbing a weapon alongside the Herald that consistently slags enemies for 2 times or 4 times extra damage, like the Grog Nozzle from the Tiny Tina DLC, and offhanding it on Salvador while spec'd into skills like I'm Your Huckleberry and Money Shot, makes for arguably the single most reliable and devastating raw source of damage in the entire game. It is impossible to overstate just how busted the Herald is, and it gets an easy 5 out of 5. Its ease of access and overwhelming power is nothing short of the pinnacle of legendary loot in Borderlands 2. I mean, you can get it as early as level 7 and it be your staple weapon until level 20. There's absolutely nothing in this game that you can throw at the Herald and it live to tell the tale. Its self-reliability can get stale after a while, simply slagging enemies and then swapping to it repeatedly. However, that isn't so much a fault of the Unkempt Harold as it is other weapons for not being able to live up to its strength. It is an avatar of destruction among other pistols, inarguably a top 5 weapon in the entire game. Some would argue it's number 1, and I have a very difficult time disagreeing with them. Alright, moving on to the Infinity Pistol, manufactured by Vladoff. It's dropped by Doc Mercy in Three Horns Valley with a 10% drop rate, who only spawns after activating and completing the medical mystery side quests from Dr. Zed. Farming Doc Mercy isn't bad at all. If you know how to parkour, you can climb your way to him 20 steps from where you spawn and just melt his face as he steps out. The digitized version of him in the Digistruct Peak also has the same drop chance. There's a couple alternative ways to obtain the Infinity, such as Chubby Bone enemies for a 10% drop rate, or the Golden Golem boss for an abysmal 1.95% drop rate, both of which can be found in the Tiny Tina DLC. There's also Lieutenant Angvar of the Fight for Sanctuary DLC, who has a whopping 12.5% chance of dropping the Infinity. I would say Doc Mercy is the best farm for speed, but Lieutenant Angvar would be the best farm for someone wanting other weapons too, as Angvar's loot pool can contain effervescent rarity gear as well, which I'll save for another video. The Infinity's gimmick is that it never consumes ammo no matter how much you fire it, with the spread of the bullets forming an infinity symbol as you fire. The Infinity is arguably the most iconic weapon in the game for this, as I know it was many people's big push to start farming for legendaries, at least back when this game first came out. Like, dude, there's a gun that fires forever? That's fucking sick, where do I get that? And since then, this gun has just perfectly encapsulated what these games do right when it comes to gun design. This is the peak of developers saying to players, hey, we know you like your power fantasy, so here's a cheat code of a gun. Now don't go modding. In all actuality, despite how iconic this gun is and how busted it sounds having an infinite firing capacity, it consistently underperforms, as that's literally all that's special about the weapon. In the early game, it's perfectly usable, especially with an element attached. You can freely hold down the trigger in normal mode and get results. But that can be said about almost every gun in the game, and that quickly stops being the case as you scale higher. There's one single build using Zero's one-shot, one-kill skill that is able to reliably use the Infinity Pistol in the endgame, and even then you really have to force the build to work entirely around the Infinity. And it does its job, granted. It's not bad under this circumstance, but it can still be wildly outclassed by many other guns and builds for Zero alone. There's a lot more praise to be given to the Infinity than any criticisms, especially for how much of an icon it's become. However, its functionality just doesn't compare to many others in the game, so it gets a 3.5 out of 5 from me. It's very much a gimmick weapon with little else thought put into it, which makes it hard to defend from a real gameplay perspective. It sucks that it's restricted to one character's endgame build for how amazingly representative it is of the series' freedom of gun choice, but the fact that it can be used effectively and has such a great reputation makes it hard for me to rate it any lower. Next up, we got the abhorrent Logan's gun, manufactured by Hyperion. It has one exclusive designated drop source, the story boss Wilhelm in the end of the line map with a 5% drop rate, which is one of the easiest farms in the whole game as you spawn right next to him. And you know what? Thank God there's not much to say on that because there's not much to say about this gun in general. It sucks. The Logan's gun's special gimmick is that it fires rockets instead of regular bullets, exploding and dealing 150% fire rocket damage, and then having another 4 smaller explosions go off, each dealing 75% fire rocket damage. Now on paper that sounds like a hell of a deal. You're probably thinking, well, why does it suck so bad? And I couldn't tell you. For whatever reason, despite all these stats, even on the easiest mode you will be left nibbling away at enemy health bars. This thing just does no damage. I've never understood it. It's not useful as a weapon at all, in the same exact vein as the Thunderball Fists. There is one pseudo-use it has, which is that if you have an ammo absorption shield on and you use the Logan's gun to shoot at your feet, your shots fired will then turn into rocket ammo instead of pistol ammo. But this is far more niche of an application than it sounds, as for that to be consistently useful, you have to prioritize using a damn good rocket launcher to even warrant wasting the weapon slot for the Logan's gun. There's really not much else to say here. Logan's gun just sucks, dude. 1 out of 5. It has a niche use for rocket launcher builds, but that's it. Even then, it's mostly for speedrunning, using rocket jumps to fly across the map, which isn't even how people play this game. Never once wanted to seek this gun out and never will. Oh my god. Okay, next up is the Gub, manufactured by Bandit. I just gotta say, as I was writing this, I just understood its name. Bandit is all about misspellings. I'm reading the red text, I see it's another case of that. Apt natural. Okay, and then I look at my keyboard and it hits me, bro. Gub is gun. How did I never put 2 and 2 together that it's supposed to just be gun? That instantly makes it so much better. Oh my god. Anyway, the Gub is exclusively found in the fridge, dropped by the special enemy Laney White during the Cold Shoulder mission given to you by Scooter, with a 10% drop rate. Another very simple farm, the run to Laney is only about 30 seconds, if that. And like every other legendary in the game, it can be found in any loot source for an unbelievably low chance. About a 0.009% chance, or 1 in 10,000 that any given loot source drops a legendary, and then it's a 1 in 56 chance that you roll the Gub of all possible legendaries, which comes out to this number chance of you obtaining the Gub at any point in the game, or a 1 in 622,121 chance if my math serves me correct. I say all this because despite this math, the Gub has become a total meme on JoltsDude139's channel for just how frequently he gets it in world drops. After seeing this number, I've come to the conclusion that he's been hexed by Laney White, bro. Anyways, again, the Gub is another corrosive exclusive element weapon. At the point in the game where you can farm for this thing, that's not such a bad deal, considering you're now starting to face loader bots who encompass the majority of armored enemies in the game. But here's the catch with this weapon. The catch that particularly sets this gun into meme stardom as a legendary. Its special gimmick is that it shoots slow projectiles. Yup, that's it. Which isn't even unique to the Gub, as there's common rarity bandit pistols with the same exact slow bullet shit. They really just took a corrosive bandit pistol, slapped some slightly higher stats on it, and called it a day. Unlike other weapons in this slideshow, this one just doesn't have any niches or any uses. It's pathetic compared to its pre-sequel brother, the Zim, which actually has a competent design that doesn't even require specific builds, just speaks for itself and puts work in. While the Gub just sits there and rots in your inventory because there's just a billion better options. Pretty safe to say this is an easy 0.5 out of 5. It's only not a 0 because it can be okay as an option if you have 0 other corrosive weapons, but you're still kind of sucking it having the Gub as your only one. Never once has anyone genuinely said to themselves, "Oh, I'm gonna grind the Gub so I can complete my build." It doesn't happen. I mean, this thing might as well just not exist. Nothing would be different. Yo, post-editing note, I can't make this shit up, bro. I was looking up JoltsDude139's logo, then look at what's showing up. Right there, man. I told you, he's been hexed. He's been hexed. Alright, let's move on to a slightly less egregiously designed pistol, the Gunerang, manufactured by Tedior. You'll find it in the fridge, same place as the Gub, and right down the hall from Laney, dropped by Rackman for a 10% chance. I don't really have any comments on the farm. I'd say it's just your average farming experience in BL2. Moderate runtime to Rackman's location with some enemies along the way. It's not nearly as bad as many others in the game. You can also get the Gunerang from the raid boss Master Guy, located in the Captain Scarlet DLC, for a shockingly low 1.7% drop chance. Considering Guy has the second highest health pool of any enemy or boss in the entire game, at just over 402 billion, and on average you spend at least 10 to 15 minutes per kill on Master Guy if you aren't cheesing him by crushing him with a door, I don't think this farm is worth it at all, especially not for the Gunerang. Being a Tediore weapon, like all others, it's designed to be thrown as a projectile on reload for extra damage, and this damage increases depending on how much ammo you still have left in your magazine. The Gunerang takes that concept and decides to make it its special gimmick that it's a boomerang. So when you throw it, it comes right back to you after a couple seconds and then homes in on enemies. Just like the Gub, that is the weapon's downfall, as that's the only thing it does. Granted, it has a higher base damage and reload damage than other Tediore weapons, however it's still hard to justify a place for this weapon in your inventory when its gameplay loop demands that you throw away all your pistol ammo, because otherwise it's just a slightly above average Tediore pistol, and that simply doesn't hold up against any number of other red text weapons in the game. This weapon is very easy to pass by, especially as what's supposed to be a legendary. I know there's a super cheese strat that you can use with the Gunerang and a Tediore Axton build, spec'd into skills where he increases reload speed and mag size, that allow for you to instantly one-shot under specific circumstances, such as in Hyperius' arena or against the Veracitus raid boss, where you're free to insta-kill them with this setup. However, this is not the normal performance of the Gunerang and requires specific conditioning. The weapon is usable to an extent, again strictly on a Tediore Axton build. It's one of his best weapons under that build. However, it might as well be considered a challenge run to do this consistently across all enemies and encounters. It's not easy to reliably use this weapon as your source of damage, especially in group encounters towards the end game. There's endless better options than the Gunerang in general, and it's still hard to consider it a decent weapon when it's relegated to one build that is highly unorthodox and hard to play. All of this lends the weapon an easy 2 out of 5. It has its uses. I mean, without it, Axton would be even worse off as a Vault Hunter, but under no circumstances does anyone seek out the Gunerang outside of Tediore Axton. Just like with the Gub, I feel like the world would have just kept on spinning had the Gunerang not made it into the game. Alright, last but most certainly not least, we got the legendary Maggie, manufactured by Jacobs. You can find this puppy exclusively in the Dust, dropped by Nick Zafford during the Clan Wars questline for a 10% chance. You have the option between farming for this or the legendary Slaga SMG, depending on which enemy you choose. Like, they're directly next to each other, it doesn't even matter. And while the Slaga does have a soft place in my heart, Maggie is infinitely more worth the farm. The Maggie Slaga farm is the single fastest and easiest in the entire game though, so either way you're done with this in 5 or 10 minutes flat if you're just looking for any old drop. I'm getting beside myself though. The Maggie will never come with any element, which depending on who you ask or what build you're using, this could be seen as a downside. However, it makes up for this in pure raw damage. It's meant as a successor to the Masher pistols found in Borderlands 1, with its special gimmick being that it fires 6 bullets for every 1. There is no penalty to this buff, you just straight up deal 6 times the normal damage per shot. So let's say your Maggie has a magazine size of 10. If you empty that magazine, you've effectively fired 60 bullets from a regular Jacobs pistol. And like, well, most other Jacobs weapons, the Maggie fires as fast as you can pull the trigger, so if you're quick enough, you're blasting common enemies in the face with those 60 bullets in under a second, and those fuckers' heads explode. If I can speak as young Unk for a moment, in the super early days of this game, before the Unkempt Harold swept away the game, with the Grog combo and Slag being the meta of UVHM, there is a time where people, including myself, considered the Maggie as the best pistol in the entire game. I fondly remember the level cap being 50 and farming for multiple Maggies. So many videos on YouTube back then showing dudes dual wielding 2 different Maggies on Salvador for insane pistol damage. I mean, the Maggie used to be absolutely top dog. And honestly, even nowadays it still is. You cannot look me in the face and tell me that the Maggie doesn't hold up. Not because you won't hold a straight face, but because it'll smack the shit out of you. It's pretty easy to say it's not the best pistol in the game anymore, but you will go a long time on your character before deciding it's not needed in your build anymore. Let's lay it out. The farm is fast and easy, it's universal in every build compatibility, and it blows away 80 to 90% of all other pistol options in its raw and accessible damage. Unlike many other weapons, I feel the Maggie has no trouble scaling at all, quite easily climbing alongside you even through the OP levels. Some characters like Sal, Maya, and Zero especially can even still sap some power from it in the endgame at OP 10, make great work of enemies. Altogether, the Maggie gets a fantastic 4.5 out of 5. I can't knock it at all. I have essentially zero qualms with how the Maggie is designed. It's simplistic, yet not without thought, taking the concept of a previously established gun type and making it into a singular, competent, and efficient legendary weapon. There's nothing that holds the Maggie back from a perfect 5 aside from simply being power crept as the game's meta has evolved. More weapons have been added, but even then, this is yet another must-have that you will always be able to reliably turn to, at any point on any character. Maggie is wonderful, and thank God for that breath of fresh air after all those stinkers, damn! Well, if you made it this far, congratulations, we are now in the Epilogue Phase. And also thank you, because you either just listen to me ramble for 20 minutes about guns from a game you've never touched in your life, or have already played for 5,000 hours. Like, either way, you're actually insane, but I'm grateful I've kept your attention this long. Anywho, ranking time, you know how these work already. I'm just gonna immediately slap these two in the unusable tier. There's not much I can say without parroting myself already. I don't think I even need an explanation, like the Thunderball Fists and the Gub are just total jokes. Next. Going in niche, we got the Logan's gun. Yeah, it's just as garbage as the Thunderball Fists and Gub, but for the utility it offers and rocket ammo, it genuinely has enough of a use to warrant this ranking. I'm also putting the Gunerang here. I would put it in the good option tier as it is highly performative on accident, however I do consider that to be very niche. 1 out of 6 characters can use it, and your build has to center around it, and even then it's not super reliable 100% of the time. Very niche, I'd say. The Infinity fits perfectly in the good option tier. It's a perfectly well-rounded pick that any Vault Hunter can pick up and get results with. It has a decent enough gimmick that can be helpful in ammo consumption on pistol-heavy builds. It can excel quite far in the hands of Zero. However, it's still very much just a middle-ground legendary despite all that. You'll easily see countless other legendaries outshine what the Infinity can do 10 times over. Like, it performs well in a vacuum. When you isolate the Infinity's damage output, you can be like, yeah, I killed that boss in 3 minutes, that's not bad. But then you compare it to weapons like the Unkempt Harold beating the same boss in 3 seconds, and that's when the cracks start to form. Going in the must-haves, we got the Hornet and the Maggie. Very self-explanatory choices. I mean, if the idea even passes your mind that you're able to grind these weapons, you absolutely should. For any and every reason, you will always have a use for these two pistols. They are the penultimate solutions to many of your problems throughout this game. I would say that the Hornet struggles in the endgame far more than the Maggie does. However, up until then, which is a big chunk of your playthrough, you'll be able to pretty much slap either of these two pistols on any character build and just be golden. They're that free. Finally, of course, I mean, who needs any explanation here? Of course the Unkempt Harold is going in the playthrough staple tier. Going beyond what the Maggie and Hornet are capable of, the Herald isn't just thrown on any character build, it leads the builds it's put on. For every character at every point in the game, you can always safely default to the Unkempt Harold as a surefire primary weapon, and it will put in the work 100% of the time. Against every enemy, against every boss, the Unkempt Harold is the Vault Hunter's best friend. Enough said. This is the summit of legendary pistols, maybe even guns as a whole, in Borderlands 2. Simply perfection. I appreciate you for making it this far in my ramblings. I might do another one of these if this gets 10 comments. 10 comments and I'll do another. Alright, now that I set a goal I'll never hit, I can rest easy with this being my last vid for a while again. And no, Ashen and Jaden, you fuckers can't just spam comments. Fourth wall break, bitches. I know at least one of you got this far. This took me like 4 days, if you can believe it, so I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. I'll see ya.